Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our Business Transition Roadmap. We are so fortunate today to have Marcy McNeal with us. Marcy is one of our transition guides here at the Transition Strategists, and today's focus for the podcast is on business governance. We talk a lot about business governance, and sometimes that's a pretty frightening thing. It sounds like you might be, put into a box and you won't be able to make decisions, and it's going to be very constraining and all of these other things. We see that all the time. And what we've found is the business governance is actually one of the most powerful things that you can do to move forward in a transition roadmap. It is just incredible, the opportunities that exist there. So I'd like to welcome Marcy, and thank you so much for being here to talk about business governance and your experience with business owners.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back, Elizabeth. I always love joining you here, and am very excited about this topic because it's such a powerful tool for families in transition, especially because it really creates that opportunity for them to have the important and sometimes hard conversations. So really, really excited to be here and talk about this today.
Terrific. So again, Marcy's one of our transition guides and just has a lot of experience in this area. So how about we start with just kind of defining, when you think about business governance, what is business governance in a current state, typically in a business? So we'll start there. And then what is a business governance that actually supports and helps in a transition? So what have you found?
Yeah. I think in your intro, you spoke to kind of what a lot of people envision is that it's going to be business governance is, people who are going to tell us what to do. It's going to be very limiting. It's going to be hard, and I'm not going to get to do what I want to do. And in the work that we've done and the organizations and families that I've worked with, it's the opposite. It actually becomes this amazing source of freedom where people's voices are heard. Everybody gets included. The conversations happen in the appropriate setting, not because we passed each other in the hallway and tried to make a big decision and it was just two of us and now other people don't know what's going on, but we decided. So it really provides that structure. And it also, in the families that I've been working with the transition strategists, it's a learning ground because most often, not everyone has served on a board, or they've served on a board of a nonprofit as a board member, but now it's different. This is your business. This is the business that you're hoping to take forward, as a transition happens. So it's the structure to learn how that works. It's a structure to develop and have in place to go forward. Because there will hopefully, if the business goes well, and there will be another transition at some point down the road. Or why not have that in place for the next generation or the next owner to have that structure that's working really well? So it's actually a tool that does bring freedom as opposed to limitation, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start working with businesses and we start down the road of, creating their transition roadmap, what is a typical governance structure in a business that you start with?
Oh, typically it's just the owner, somebody who just makes whatever decisions they want to make. And they've always gotten to do that. I'm the owner. I'm the only owner. I'm going to decide. And that maybe worked really well as you were creating the business and growing the business, and you had to be nimble, and somebody had to just be in charge and make some of those tough decisions. And now, as the businesses have matured and they're stable and they have opportunities to expand and grow, and there's more people involved. So it's gone from one person got to decide everything to now, all of my kids are shareholders and owners, or someone that, came from, inside the business is now going to be the owner. There's more voices at the table. So we have to expand the structure to make room for that. And that's not always easy for the one person that got to make all of the decisions for a long time. And they knew that their decisions were the right decisions. And even if they weren't the right decisions, they could own that they were the ones that made them. So it can be scary for that person because it is part of the transition. It's part of the letting go and trusting. And that board governance, again, provides the appropriate structure for that trust to be built and for that control and decision-making to be shared and spread across those additional voices. And then eventually that one person steps out, when they're ready and when the business is ready for them to do that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I love to get to see us bring that owner who's really ready to make that transition into that new structure and let them kind of play with it, get a little uncomfortable with it, and hopefully embrace it as well as the other people that are on the board. So,
yeah, absolutely. And what I was thinking about while you were talking about that is the idea of slowing down. There's, is there, I guess, a slowdown for the owner because they can't make decisions as quickly, right? They can't pivot as quickly because there's potentially then a board meeting or an agenda or something that it gets put forward onto, and then discussions and other things. But I would think it would be really interesting to be that owner and have to slow down like that.
That's a fantastic point. And yes, it suddenly is. It can almost cause a little friction, right? Like I don't get to just make that decision today and implement it tomorrow. And they'll probably do that a few times, and they'll probably have to have a conversation with the board about, okay, no, why did you do that without us? And so there's again there's learning on both sides of what that looks like to slow down and to let those other people be a part of that decision-making process. So that's the owner who's letting go. And then the new folks, whether it's whether it's children or whoever the successors are, for them to also recognize the structure exists to say, wait a minute, we didn't get to be a part of that conversation. And they might still have said the same thing. They might have made the exact same decision and it would have gone the exact same way, but the structure is there. We have an agenda. We have a specific time. This is when we meet. This is when we talk about this type of decision. And, so definitely it's learning on both sides of that board governance model and that board governance structure. So, but could be very challenging for someone who likes to move quickly and now has to take a minute and pause and say, okay, other people have to get to participate in this.
Absolutely. So, well, and behavior change is really tough, especially when you've done it for years and years and years. And even the dynamics, I think, of having, if it is a family, because you can do this you can have a board with other partners that are non-family members if you're in that situation and your successors are non-family. But if they are family, just changing the dynamic from being father or mother and children to being more on the board side, more peer oriented, right? Because on that board, the board is more peer oriented. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we do spend, when we work with families in their board governance, and sometimes we even are in their board meetings to help support them, guide them, educate them, all of those steps. And we talk about the roles, like what hat are you wearing right now? Oh, are you being the son right now? Are you being the mom right now? Or are you being equal owners right now? Or are you being the employee? And some of those roles, they don't have a place at the board table. They shouldn't be there. And to be mindful and watch themselves, like you said, behavior change, just be noticing the behavior of, yeah, I'm slipping into a 12-year-old right now because mom said such and such. And everyone being okay with like, no, that's not my role in this moment. I need to step back. I need to look at it from this lens, not this lens over here, even though this one's important to me, but this is what we're committed to building. This is what we're committed to moving forward, our legacy, our business, for our family, all of those things. And I really think when things get maybe a little tense or a little bit of friction there, what I know is so important to come back to is, what is that commitment? What is the commitment each of them have for the business? Because that can read presence and have you shift from, okay, I'm taking this personally. I'm thinking about it only from my best interest or my perspective, and that's not going to get us where we are committed to going. And so that's, I think we bring that sometimes to families who are new to the structure and navigating those conversations, because I mean, they are always going to be mom and dad. They are always going to be the kids, but it's, to shift to, we have equal ownership or equal participation and equal voices in this conversation and at this table is important, and at times can be challenging, but really, really worth it when we provide that guidance and they see, and then they get to experience, wow, that was an amazing conversation. We came to a decision and we're all good. We're all okay with it. So
yeah,
it does happen. And it's you and I think when we get to work with these families and do these scenarios, it's fun. Like, it's really fun for us to see. It's fun to see the light bulb go on. It's fun to see the progress they make, the growth they take. And they may not even realize, like, hey, we're operating really, really well. And we see it. It's like, yeah, look how far you've come. You're making decisions. You're getting through topics, Yeah.
And the other thing, and then I have a comment and then a question for you. But the other thing that I think is so interesting is, yes, of course, operating well, but also the opportunity to have, for people to be whole, for people to be, feel like they are included and they are important and that they are in the know and they are not being left out, because the conversations are there and they're not someplace else, like you said earlier, in the hallway or those kinds of things. So there's a huge honor of the person that happens with this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, these are not the conversations that should happen at Sunday night dinner or Thanksgiving, or, that's not where you have these conversations. It's not the right place. It's not appropriate. This is because you have to be in a different frame of mind. You need to be focused on what's the intent of our meeting, of our conversation. And, you're going to lose it in those other settings, definitely. Or you're just going to forget. Like, this seems like an easy thing to decide. We'll just do it. And then people are left out. So
that's it. So my question for you is, let's say we've got a business owner who's starting to think about transition, and they're beginning to, they're kind of thinking, okay, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get people going? How do I start? So if I was that business owner, where would I start? What steps do you take people through? Do we take people through that help them to walk into this instead of just a big legal document?
Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah. Well, big legal documents are, they have their place, right? Sometimes we do need to have those legal documents so everything is all tidy and everything is where it needs to be and everyone understands what they're committing to. But that legal document, starting with a legal document, means all the voices have been excluded. They've just been excluded. One person's voice is presented. And, so couple things when someone is starting to think about their transition and we have the opportunity to connect with them and share with them what could be possible First, we want to help them get really clear on their objectives. They are the owner, right? They are maybe they're the founder, maybe they're not, but they are the owner. They are, at this point, the decision maker on what will happen next. But what are their objectives? And we really encourage and get people to look at what are their objectives, not just for themselves, but for their family, especially if it's a family business transition. What does that mean? How do you include that family? How do you include all of the family? Whether they work in the business or they don't, or maybe none of them do, I don't know. But family is a piece of that. And so when they get their objectives, then it can be a conversation of, even if you don't know how exactly it's going to look, the transition, but then the opportunity is there to invite people. You invite people. How might you want to be a part of this? How might you want to engage in this business? What could that look like? What might this mean for your future? What does it mean for your own objectives, for yourself and your own family, if they have others? And, that invitation is so powerful. It's just so powerful, because without it, again, those voices aren't represented. And then people just feel like the transition is done to them. Dad just decided, here's what it's going to be. And we can all like it or not, or take it or leave it. And as opposed to creating something that achieves most of the objectives we possibly can, putting the odds, we like to say, putting the odds in their favor, that they'll meet as many of them as they can. And yes, Dad will have his own thoughts and opinions, and everyone else will have their thoughts and opinions. But at least there's a place to have those conversations and sort it out and be honoring and respectful of each other and what everyone brings to the table.
Right. And then, so if I was that owner, so now I know what I want, and I know I know what I want, and I sort of know who would be involved. So at least I got that far. I may not have my full roadmap in front of me, but I have a concept. And I just decide to start with governance, right? That's what I'm going to do. Then how do I even decide things, how is it going to work, and how many people, and all of those other things? Because having a board takes structure. So what's next?
Well, one of the tools that we have that we use, I think is really valuable, is creating basically a board charter. And this is how we're going to set it up. This is how many times we're going to meet. This is the standard topics we're going to cover. We help them create kind of their typical agenda and the structure and flow of that. Board roles. What does it actually mean to be a board member? Are you going to get paid? Are you not going to get paid? Or, are you going to, if you're in the business as an employee, what does that mean? How do you get to participate if you're a family member? So it's really that charter document that we guide families through is kind of the cornerstone of, okay, we've agreed on this is how it's going to operate as a board. But that's just the first step. You have to have that piece. And then you start doing it. Then you got to have a board meeting. You got to start with one and try it and make mistakes and have successes. And, if possible, have a guide, have someone that can be there with you who's experienced it and can provide that perspective and examples and support on working through those agenda items. Because sometimes those conversations can get a little long. We only have 90 minutes here, guys. We got to move it on. But those, I would say, that charter. Also, then there's, we help them look at their decision levels. Okay, what levels are decisions in the business going to happen? What are we going to make decisions on? What are we going to empower our employees and our leadership to make decisions on? And then they report up to us how that went. So decision levels is very important, especially for the person transitioning out, because they've been the decision levels. And now it's, where is it all going to reside? And so I think those three things, are incredibly helpful.
Yeah. And, just in experience, the two documents that you just talked about are foundational documents. They give you the groundwork that you need to do that. And it so many times in my many years, business owners just don't want the governance because they think that they're going to give up the control. And they also are really unsure, though, about having a successor who comes in and is basically the runaway train, right? With all that young energy and new stuff and new ideas. And so in the years, the decision levels, that was I think one of the most important components that we put into our process was to have that, because it's sort of like a brake and an accelerator. You can move decision levels and value, like, money levels, values, um, either from shareholders, owners, to the board, to your executive leadership team. You can keep more at the board, push more to the owners, push more to the exec team, depending on your level of confidence and trust, and also their level, the successor's level of experience and thoughtful decision making. So it's such a cool thing to have those decision levels. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, just something I would add, Elizabeth, is we should, no owner should expect that they're just going to toss the reins. I just trust you implicitly with this thing I've built, and I know you're going to make all the right decisions. So those documents and the board governance structure allows them to see and witness and grow their confidence in their successor, to be able to see, okay, they're getting it. Okay, yeah, that decision makes a lot of sense. I fully agree. That's a great idea. It's a process of letting them see that, yeah, to just grow their confidence in that successor, and for their confident or their successor to become confident. Like, I made a decision that they thought was great. So, yeah, I mean, that is it goes both ways, but it is a great place for that to happen, in a very formal structure, which is, I think, a really great tool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, so when a family or an owner, let's say, if they're in partnership or bringing in successors that are non-family, when they decide to put, these documents into place, and then they decide to launch their board, in your experience, how long does it take for the board actually to start functioning, quote unquote, properly?
Yeah. I mean, it does depend. It does depend, I think, on the level of education the board members have. Some of them are coming in having served on a board for some other organization, so they have a little bit of knowledge, but it's different when it's your agenda and your topics. Some board members are going to be like, I don't even know what the agenda is. I'm not even sure what we're doing here, really. So it very much depends on where we're starting. But I mean, it's probably 4, 5, 6 months before I think they sort of get more comfortable. Maybe a full year before they kind of hit a stride of, yeah, okay, we're we're really doing it, and this is working. I think they do experience it working before a year, but like consistently, like we've really embraced that this is the place we have these conversations. We've really embraced that this is where the decisions get made, because I think it's tempting. It's tempting, like, oh, well, we're in another meeting over here. Can't we just have that conversation? And for someone to say, actually, no, I think that's a board agenda item. Like, that's when they're actually hitting their stride, when they actually can stop themselves and say, that's a board meeting agenda item, not a staff meeting or a whatever kind of leadership meeting or whatever the case might be. I would say that's when they've really embraced it.
Yeah.
When they catch themselves and they find that they know to use that as a tool, as a place to put that decision.
Right. The idea behind that is so amazing, because the board is actually a new practice. It's a new governance practice and it takes time. I think what I found is people think, oh yeah, we're just going to put in a board. We don't need much of a runway. It's going to be super simple and we're just going to do that with ease, right? It's just going to be like, oh yeah, we'll just put that board in. And it's really about again, education and the behavior change that has to take place in order to get that really working. I think people underestimate that a lot.
Yeah, they do think it's very simple, and they might think it's kind of not that significant. Why is it, is it really that important? We'll do it because it's a good practice to do, but is it really where we're going to make our decisions? And, they need to, if they really embrace it and make that behavior change, is when they get to experience the full value of what it provides. And, I can even, I think of a family that I work with right now where they're tackling some really significant issues and conversations. Mm-hmm. And they are, even though it might not feel sometimes like they're making progress, they have made so much progress. It's like, okay, this agenda item is on here for the 4th month in a row. And I'm like, well, that's because we made a little bit of progress on it. Now we have the next level of progress to make. And, so it definitely just provides that space for those bigger issue conversations that they might want to gloss over, or they just push. Oh, we'll get to that someday. And it's like, no, we're getting to it today.
Yeah.
So,
because we have to make decisions on it. And it does provide a place for people who need decisions made on sometimes things that an owner typically wouldn't want to tackle. There are so many, that causes so much friction, right? When one person wants it done and needs it done and sees it that it needs to, and they have a high sense of urgency. And especially if it's the owner saying, oh no, we're going to deal with that later, but there's no place to talk about that. No place to actually do that. So throw it on the agenda. Let's have a conversation. Let's understand the why behind the owner wanting to push it, right? That's okay. Mm-hmm. Understand that. And let's also understand, though, the reason why there's a sense of urgency on the other side to do something. Yep. So we have transparency and it works beautifully.
Yep, it does. It does create the space for that level of a conversation. And, it doesn't mean everybody's going to get what they want out of it, but, and maybe the decision will go the other way, but they've been heard. You get a chance to be heard and the voices are all there. So.
Yeah, which is it's a great way to agree to disagree, right? But it's for the better of the company and it's the way that we need to go. And so we move forward. And Marcy, I swear.
I just want to add something really quickly, Elizabeth, because it's also the better way to maintain those key important relationships inside the family. Because you can have a conversation at a board meeting, you can be board members and you can leave the room and you can have Sunday dinner and be mom and dad and kids and whatever the scenario is. And that conversation isn't there. It's not present. It lived where it did in the board meeting. So, and it's not personal in the board meeting. It's not about, I don't agree with you. You're bad. You made the wrong choice. It's about this is what we're committed to for the business. And we can still have really strong, loving family relationships outside of this meeting. And that's, I think, so important.
It is. And that's what that concept is, what goes back to the first document that you talked about, which is that board constitution, right? It's a board constitution of what are we agreeing to and how do we want to behave and how do we want to act and what's right and what's not okay. And, just what's expected of us as a board member. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's all good stuff. It's worth having.
It is. So, Marcy, our time goes so quickly and we are at the end of our time here. One, I want to thank you for coming and just can't, thank you enough for taking the time to share your experience in the business governance. And two, I just would like, what one thing would you leave with our listeners that you think might be helpful for them on the topic?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I love talking about this because this work is so fulfilling and it's inspiring to see families navigate a transition so powerfully. And I would say my one piece of advice or feedback for somebody who is considering a transition, you could do your board governance now. You can do it anytime. You could invite people to be on your board, even if they have no ownership, or you give them 1% ownership or whatever it is. But it's never too soon to put board governance in place that's going to support the important decisions that need to happen as you grow your business and eventually transition your business. It's a great practice. It's a great practice. And it takes time. So no time like the present.
That is awesome. That is such great advice. And, it even made me think about multi-generational type things, and even inviting people on to learn and grow when they don't even have a vote. You can do that too. So what great advice, Marcy. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, you be well. And again, thanks for all of your thoughts and contribution today.
Absolutely. It was fun.